Hi, I'm Dino Padron, the president of Davis College, and I'm joined today with my new executive assistant, Corey Adams, who is also the historian of Davis College. And the month of April is a very special month for our college. Our college is now over 100 years old, and exactly how old is our college, Corey?
Well, this summer it's going to mark 115 years since the first classes were actually started. But this month of April is actually a really special month because of an event that took place in April of 1900.
That is great. Now, you were not alive and I was not alive, so you better tell us the story. What happened back then?
All right, so John A. Davis, our founder, he was only 28 years old at the time, which I think is pretty amazing. Only 28 years old, and he was down in Hazleton, Pennsylvania for a revival. And on April 5th, 1900, he was led of the Lord to start a school very similar to what he had gone to out in Chicago with Moody. And this was back, Moody was still alive when Johnny Davis was going there. And he wanted to form a school that was very similar to Moody's on the East Coast. But he wasn't really sure if this was really something that God was laying on his heart. So he was looking for some kind of confirmation.
You know, Corey, sometimes in our lives we look for that, don't we? We think something may be God's will, and we've got to pray about it, and sometimes God does something. So something happened to our founder. What was that?
Yeah, he was going up from Hazleton to Elmira, and this is actually his sermon booklet for the sermon he was going to be preaching on April 10th, 1900 at the Elmira Tabernacle. And he was going to be preaching a sermon on the two foundations found in Matthew chapter 7, where you have the parable of the foolish man building on the sand and the wise man building on the rock. And so he was on his way to Elmira to preach it, and God was working in the heart of somebody that was up in the Horseheads, Elmira area.
And who was that? Who was that person?
This was a lady by the name of L.A. Crossan, and she was a poor washwoman. She didn't really have a lot of money to her name, and actually recently I think I found some information that she came from the state of Michigan. And she heard about Johnny Davis coming to this revival meeting, and she had something for him, and so she decided to bring it to the revival meeting to give to him after the message.
You know, it's interesting as you tell this story. There's a lot of difference back in those days as to the value of money. I'm still old enough, Corey, that I remember a 3-cent stamp. That was a few years ago. And the 3-cent stamp, you put it on an envelope, it would get somewhere. Well, here she had something to give him. What was that?
She had a $1 bill, which in 1900 is still a lot of money, but at the same time, it has more buying power than what it does today, but it still was, a smaller amount of money. But for somebody that's a poor washwoman, that dollar bill could be stretched for a lot of things. So she put this in an envelope, she put a note in there, and took it to the revival meeting, which was very well attended. Johnny Davis was preaching out of this message. One of the lines that he mentioned from this is, "We must build on something. That is common sense. We cannot build on air. We all know that we must build on some foundation. It is true at times all build what they call air castles, but they do not amount to anything." So Johnny Davis is talking about building these foundations. And she's hearing this particular message, and she was moved by this message. And she came up to him after this meeting, and Johnny Davis was shaking hands with lots of people, and she was able to hand him that envelope. And he was kind of busy, so he just sort of put it into his coat pocket and didn't really think much about it until he got back to where he was staying that night. And as he was taking off his suit jacket, the envelope fell out. He opened it up, and inside of it there was a dollar bill and this note that she had written to him. And it said, "I'm a poor washwoman, but God has laid it on my heart that you're going to do great things for him. So use this dollar bill for whatever he's told you to do." That was Johnny Davis's confirmation.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that the sermon that he was preaching about was about foundations. And on that day that sermon was preached, the foundations of this college were laid. The foundations that have lasted for 115 years.
115 years ago, in the month of April, this took place. What a historical event at Davis College. And when you look back at it, Corey, there have been thousands now of men and women go through this college. Many have gone off into ministry. And it is interesting what a seed will do, just the dropping of a seed, and the seed was that $1 bill. I was thinking as we were about to do this interview, what a dollar would buy today, and I really stretched to think of too many things that $1 bill might buy today. I don't think you can buy a pack of gum for $1. Maybe you can, but it'd be pretty inexpensive gum, maybe,
Yeah.
with only 5 sticks in it. So,
But God can use the small things to make a big impact on the world.
yeah,
Doesn't matter how big or how small the gift is. God can use the small things, just like those 5 loaves and 2 fishes.
yeah, that's exactly right, Corey. Well, thanks for sharing that. A big day in Davis history, a big month in Davis history, the power of a $1 bill. Thanks so much, Corey.
Thanks, Dr. Padron.